Hello, ngHouston. I'm Bonnie, and welcome back. I'm really glad to see you again. We have a great episode tonight. First, I want to introduce my co-host, Bjorn. Thank you for joining us again. You want to say hello?
Hello, Houston. How are you doing today?
I feel like you have more authentic Houston than I do because you've got the city skyline right behind you.
Yeah, this keeps going up every week, it feels like. I haven't even rotated the picture yet, so
it feels like Houston. It feels like home. It's great.
Which is good for you because I'm not even from America, so from the United States, so it's different.
I like it. It's like setting the ambiance for ngHouston. Okay, so I am very excited tonight because our guest tonight is actually a friend of mine. He did a talk with me at Vikings last year in Copenhagen, and he's just a super cool guy. And I've been trying to get him on the show for a while just because I think he's cool. And not only that, but he has a very cool topic for us. So I just told him to come on the show and teach us something cool. And then when I found out what he was teaching us about, I got even more excited. So I'm going to let him tell you, Matt Carniatto. Welcome to ngHouston.
Thank you for the introduction. It was really cool. I'm really glad to be here. And so today I'm going to talk a little bit how we can use NX to build a monorepo with your stack, so front end and back end, and share some code between them.
Cool.
It's going to be fun. It's going to have some live coding, so be patient, and it's going to be amazing.
It's going to be really cool. We should tell them where you got the nickname Serial Matt from.
Yeah, that's actually a really funny story. So I met, as Bonnie said, I met her in Angular Connect, and then we see again in NGB here in Brussels, in Belgium, where I live, and I invite them to spend a couple of days at my place, so they don't need to pay hotel and they can know Brussels. And Sam was really worried because she said, "Come on, you just met this guy and going to do his house is going to kill us or something."
Because
that's how I became a serial killer.
And then we were just coming in for one night and we were flying out the next night. And I was like, I was looking for a hotel just for one night. And Matt said, you can crash on my couch for a night. And I told Samantha, and she was like, I don't even know this guy. Who is this guy? And we thought he might be a serial killer. So the name stuck. He's definitely not a serial killer, you guys. It's just a joke. He's the nicest guy in the world. But we were concerned that
at least me and Sam are friends now. So
I like how you just picked up on that joke and just still run with it. I like that. That's just owning it. Just owning it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's actually the one who taught Samantha about the Rubik's Cube, which is now like an obsession of hers. So yeah, her and Matt are buddies. So he became a friend
you mean
of
these
ours.
type of things then? Yeah.
Oh, you have one too.
Yeah, we talked about it last time. I got one from Angular Connect, remember?
That's right. That's right.
Yes, from NG Viking, the AG Grid.
Yeah, AG Grid, that one, yeah.
Yes.
AG Grid. Oh, yeah. Okay, so I just want to tell him about your nickname because I think it's funny, but we should probably jump in and teach him some cool stuff. So you're going to do it like a full stack application with Nest and NX and Angular?
Yes. So cool. Of course, we're going to leverage a lot of the schematics that NX provides for us and also Angular. So just to make our lives easier, otherwise it would not be possible in this time. But okay, let's jump into it. I'll share my screen.
Yeah.
Cool. Really curious what you're going to show. Like I'm not to put any more pressure on yourself than you already need, but I'm working on a little project for myself with some Nest, and I'm now curious if you can convince me to implement it using NX. Because I'm not using NX right now, so no pressure.
Yeah, I hope to provide you some useful insights today. Then.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to it. Let's go.
Okay, cool. So we're building today a full stack application with NX, Angular, and Nest. NX has support for React as well, Express, and other technologies. This is the stack that I use, so I decided to use them. So it's a quite interesting combination, especially because Angular and Nest, they both use TypeScript, so you can share types between your front end and back end, so it's really cool. So a little bit about me, for who doesn't know, it's my first time here, so I think it was proper. I'm an Angular architect. I do talks in conferences. I also coach at Hacker Future, really cool project. And I'm an Angular architect in Reactor here in Brussels for now. I'm Brazilian, as you can see in the picture, but live in Belgium right now. So I have just one slide for this because I think it's way better to show code. So I just want to show a big picture of what I'm going to build. So NX is our monorepo, which is a bit different than a monolith. It's just having all your apps in one repository, so you can actually make PRs for your backend and frontend and in only one PR, so you can actually always keep your software working without dependency between PRs. This way, continuous deployment can be more easy and things like this. So basically, what we're going to do today, we're going to do an Angular application. Then we're going to build a really quick and simple API using Nest. And then I'm going to show real simple how we can have a lib that share either code or interfaces between these two inside NX. So for starters, NX provides several ways of creating your workspace in a really easy way. So initially, you don't have to install anything. You can straight go, in my case, I'm using Yarn, but you can also do npm init, is almost the same. So I'm going to do a Yarn create NX workspace, and I'm going to give the name ngHouston. So here you can see that you have a lot of options with web components, Angular Nest, React. So I could go straight to Angular Nest and I already have everything set up. But for the purpose of this presentation, I really want to do step by step so we can actually see what we're doing. So I'm going to take an empty workspace and I'm going to overcharge with Angular CLI because I'm planning to use Angular inside my web app. So usually this don't take that long. I timed a little bit and it was okay. So basically right now, NX is downloading all our dependencies for the NX workspace, adding also Angular CLI, and creating all the assets basics that we need for our workspace. We can see that we have Prettier, which is a good recommendation. So that's what I like in using NX. They really help you to use and enforce in your team best practices that we see for Angular and also for Nest. So, okay, so now that I have my workspace, if I look here, I have a couple projects here. I'm going to go inside ngHouston, and I'm going to do actually, to do this, I can open right here on the side. Go dot. Okay, so as you can see, it creates this workspace. And here we have a folder apps, which has no apps right now, and libs. And that's where we're going to add our applications, right? So the first thing I would do is ng add with this ng add narwhal Angular defaults, I'm going to add the capability on narwhal CLI to handle Angular applications. So the idea of the NX monorepo is really to be pluggable. So you can, if you're using Angular, you add this. Otherwise, you don't need to have this overhead.
So I saw that Yarn create. Is that like and is that also like something like NX or ng add? Is that like the same? Is it like a Yarn schematic type of thing?
Yeah, it's based on a schematic. It's you can do the same with npm init.
Oh, right on. Yeah.
So when you do npm init, you can pass a schematic that's going to create you more than just a basic environment for npm.
Right.
Okay, so with this, we just added Angular to the narwhal command line, and now we can do ing generate narwhal Angular application, and we're going to give a name. I'm going to call it journal. So since we added narrow Angular to our stack, now we can create application. And I can select SAS here, and I don't need routing. So as you can see, this just sends to Angular CLI create app, but also improves the schematics a little bit. So makes everything more like NX recommends in terms of best practices. So basically with this, if we look on the left here, we can see that we have journal and journal end-to-end. A good interesting thing is that Narrow now is defaulting to Cypress for end-to-end tests. So you already have a basic scaffolding for Cypress here, which is really great. But right now we're going to just focus on the app. It's a really basic app, and we can run it with Angular CLI, ng serve journal.
It's amazing what the CLI does for you nowadays, isn't it?
Yeah, really. I come from the time where from AngularJS and everything was manual. You have to build your own grant file or gulp file. It was really crazy.
Exactly.
Okay, so right now this is the basic app that comes with NX. It shows some cool stuff that you can have with NX. For instance, you can create components. You can view your dependency graph. You can even, if you're adding this to your CI, you can even check only the affected tests or affected files, so you can just build the apps that really changed. That's really, really cool.
That's a really powerful thing, yeah.
So for now, I'm going to copy and paste my HTML here because I think it's not really fun for me to be typing live, and probably not really safe either. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to add I'm going to add Angular material just to have something a bit more pleasing visually. Oh wait, here I'm not in the ngHouston. Okay. So again, using schematics, my idea today is really show that it's not that difficult to start with your application. If you have a good idea, just go for it.
Even if you don't have a good idea, it's worth it to just try. Yeah, just go for it. Just code it.
Yeah. Okay, so this adds Angular material with all the things. For some reason, the styles import to my SCSS is not working in my previous try, so I'm just adding manually here the theming for deep purple. Okay, so here I'm going to get rid of this HTML that comes on the scaffolding, and I'm going to add my own. I need to add some dependencies here that I'm going to use real quick. So I'm going to import from Angular material. I'm going to import mat card, mat input, and mat button. Nothing fancy, just really simple things. And I'm going to add these guys to my Angular model. I also going to add another guy here for now that I'm going to need later, and I don't want to forget. So Angular what else? So I want to have this guy here. Okay, so these errors might disappear. Yes, cool. So here, what I'm going to do initially, I'm just going to create an array of entries for my journal. And I want this array of entries to be have a type. So I'm going to create a class called entry. And this class basically has a title, that is a string, and a body, which is also a string. So my entries is a entry array, and I'm going to initialize it with empty. So I'm going to create a function fetch, which basically going to return me the entries for now. So I'm going to evolve this function later. And I'm also going to create a function on save that's going to receive a title string and a body string. So what we're building here is basically a daily journal that I can put a title, a body, and just save my thoughts. It's really simple. So here I'm going to do entries.push, and I'm going to pass title body. Good. In my HTML, let me close this side pane here. It's really simple what I'm doing here. I just have an input and a text area. This guy I don't need actually. And then down here I have my cards with ngFor looping through my fetch function, right? Our website is running, so if I wait, I forgot my CSS.
You have to forget something.
Just to make it.
It's not a live demo if you didn't forget something.
Yeah. You can't be like too perfect,
okay, cool.
otherwise it's not believable.
was not that bad. It was just a CSS file. Okay, cool. So that's the idea. So hopefully now if I say something like present,
I'm so excited to be on ngHouston today.
Awesome ngHouston presentation. I'm really cocky here. And as I add here, I can actually add multiple things. The problem with this is everything is running on my client, so I have no persistence. If I refresh my page, I miss everything that I have, right? To solve this, we're going to add a backend to based on Node. In our case, we're going to use Nest. So let's do it.
I'm excited about this.
Yeah, so now it's really cool. We have to, since we're using Nest, we have to add this capability to our NX workspace. So the same formula that we used before, we're going to do a ng add narrow nest. And this is going to install all the dependencies that we need to run Nest in our stack. Also installs the Nest CLI that's going to be used underneath by NX. And indeed, like was said, it's really cool how the CLIs nowadays make our life so much easier, right? You can just add a new stack to your monorepo, and you don't have to really remember all the imports that you have to bring. Okay, so this added the capability, and now we're going to create an app. So I'm going to do ng generate, and this is also really cool. NX use Angular CLI on the background, so everything is really the commands that you already know from your Angular apps. So if you're familiar with Angular, this is not that complicated for you.
So you're actually generating a Nest application using the Angular CLI. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
Because the Angular CLI allows you to have custom builders, and NX leverage this in a way that you can create a Nest app using Angular CLI.
I see.
So here, this creates my app, and I'm also going to say frontend project equals to journal. And what this does, it sets on my journal project a proxy with the URL where my API is going to be served, so I can use relative paths when I'm coding.
So that narwhal/nest is a schematic that Narwhal provided for us.
Yes, exactly.
I love those
And then
guys.
I'm doing everything on the command line, but it's worth to mention that you can use Angular console, your VS Code, like I have here on the
Yes.
side,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you have all the functionality that I'm doing in the command line in a more visual way. So
if you do this in the console, it's like so easy. It feels like cheating.
yeah, I want to sound a bit smart today. So.
We can't
So-
use that on ngHouston because it's like
Okay,
so
so-
easy. Like it's not even. It's just so
before
easy.
you
We
go
gotta be
ahead,
out of jobs.
Matt, the front-end project that you like the flag that you set there, is that something like is there like a page where you can find all the flags that they offer with all these like
Yeah,
schematics?
actually, that's a really cool question, because actually Norwell did a really good job with the documentation. So most of the things that I'm showing here came almost straight from the tutorial and getting started from Norwell. And they also have a detailed documentation with all the flags that you can run.
Awesome. Okay, I'll have
And
to
also,
take a look at that. Yeah.
If you look at this in console, that's one of the things I really like about Angular console, because Angular console will take a lot of the CLI commands and they just have it's basically they turn some of the CLI flags into little toggle switches. So that's what Matt's saying about super visual, because it's so easy to just see all the different options. Like there's so many things that the Angular CLI does that I always forget, right? It's like, oh yeah, you could just put that flag in there.
Turn it on.
Totally forget.
Yeah.
Here I'm using the console just to show a little bit. If I come here and select the same schematic, which is narrow nest, I'm going to have this page here with all the options and a short explanation what I can do with them.
Awesome.
So and then as you fill this, you're going to have a dry run just to see the files that might be created if you decide to go ahead. And then when it's run, you create it. So it's really awesome too.
All right, and one more, like you have front-end project once. Can you have it like set up to set up the proxy for multiple front-end projects, or are they like separate commands that you can run on different front-end projects later? Or
yeah. So you can do manually actually. So basically,
if you're in an NX mono repo, this is actually super easy.
Yeah.
If you see the changes here, this file was created, proxy.conf.json. It's actually something from Angular that allows you to proxy. So everything that I request to /API is going to be proxied to localhost 333. It's just to make it your URLs relative. So if you have a different URL for development or production, you can actually code everything relative, and when you deploy, you just say instead of this proxy configuration, use this one, and then you're going to have the URL of your production environment.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Cool. So I'm going to close my journal here, and I create a backend application in Nest called API. So it really resembles Angular structure. So it's really, really similar. In our app folder, you're going to see that you have controllers, models, and a service. They're really similar. They even use injectable and other decorators that Angular use. So Nest is really interesting for Angular developers because you really can leverage a lot of the knowledge that you already have. So basically, just a small explanation. I didn't go so deep in Angular because ngHouston, everybody should know at least a little bit of Angular. But for Nest, controller is where you define your routes, and usually use a service to do your database access. Here we're going to use a local in-memory variable. But it's really easy with Nest. The documentation is also really good. If you want to connect to your database, they have a lot of plugins. It's really, really easy to do. So I'm going to create two. I already came here with a get. So whenever I receive a get on my root, I'm going to call this function. That's what this decorator does. But I want to namespace this controller with entries, because I don't want to go to API. I actually want to go to API entries. So this means that every get to API entries is going to execute this function. Okay. So right now, if we actually give it a try, I have to run it first. It's important. So to run, it's very, very easy. I can do ngserve, and I say API. So again, I can leverage Angular CLI to run my Nest application, which is amazing. So now my application is running. It's hosted on 333 API, port 333 of localhost API. And if I do a get on entries, I can get my welcome API back. Okay, this is what this get data is returning right now. But we're going to change this. First, since we don't want only to get our entries, we also want to save them. I'm going to just duplicate this guy. I'm going to add a post here. And if I change this declarator for post and this to add entry, now whenever I do a post to this endpoint entries, I'm actually going to execute this function. That's how easy and readable your code is with Nest. Really easy to add endpoints, and it's really visual and maintainable. So here, I'm going to change this a little bit. So I'm going to add entry. We still don't have this function, but we're going to do it soon. I also want to import here body. So because I want the body of this post to create my entry. And it's as easy of saying body entry, and this already hooks us with the body of the request. And then I just need to pass my entry here. Cool, we have our endpoints. We see some errors there, but we're going to implement these methods now. So in my service, which if you see here, it's injected via constructor with the dependency injection, very similar to what we do in Angular. So it's a singleton and all that. I can go to my service, and previously I was returning my welcome API. Now I'm going to do something not really cool here. I'm going to duplicate code a little bit. So I'm going to have another class entry here because I want to type my stuff. And then later we're going to see how we can get rid of this string here. And then inside my service here, I'm going to create the same. So entries is an entry array, which I have a small mock here, just so we have some stuff to start with. And then my get data, I'm actually going to return this dot entries. I have to change my return type here, so entry array now. Cool. And we also added to the controller the function add entry. So I'm going to create add entry here, which is going to receive an entry of type entry. And this is going to do the same that we're doing in the front end. So I just transporting the way I deal with data to the backend so we can have some persistence. And I push the entry. Okay, cool. With that, our backend is working. If I refresh here now, I have my.
Could you zoom this a little bit for the people?
Oh, yes. Yes, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I think here is okay, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine then.
Here might be a bit too big, but okay, that's fine. So we have the two mocked entries on my journal on our API. So what I wanted to do now is to refactor a little bit our UI so we can actually use this API. So as you can see in my terminals here, I have running my UI and also my backend, and I can interact between them with no problem until I achieve what I want. So I'm going to go back to my application here, and we need to make a small change. So we don't need these entries anymore. We are going to call it entry dollar because for me now this is going to be observable of entry array. going to import observables here. I also want to import, because we're going to use now from Angular common. Usually I use auto import, but it was playing not really nice earlier today. So
Yeah, so no
It's
issue
just
with
nervous
code.
about performing on YouTube.
Probably,
Yeah,
yeah.
So on my constructor, I'm going to import the HTTP client. And then I'm going to change a little bit my fetch function. So this entry is now going to receive this dot entry. Oh, sorry. This HTTP client dot get. I can type my get with entry array. And here I can use, let me close this guy. Okay, so here I can use my relative path because I have my proxy. So if I didn't have that proxy, I would have to say something like HTTP dash dash, no. Since I have that proxy config, I can just come here and say entries.
All right,
Okay.
that right there is selling me right now.
Yeah.
It's just really powerful.
Another change that we have to do is how we save. So let's change this slightly. I'm going to change all this guy to be actually a HTTP client.post. And here I'm going to put API entries, and I'm going to pass my body here. And in this case, I have to subscribe. But it's okay because HTTP client, every time you have your HR request completed, the subscription also completes. So we don't have much to worry here.
In this case,
okay,
it's good,
so yeah. So okay, cool. So here we just have to change a little bit. I'm going to remove this fetch, and I'm going to put entries, my observable, and unwrap with pipe async. Hopefully, this is everything that we need to do.
Moment of truth.
Let's see how
Dun,
it
dun,
plays.
dun.
If we refresh here.
Uh-oh.
Oh no, wait.
Man. Oh no.
Yeah. Yeah. Good question. But this is because I had this problem before. It's just because I have to rerun this guy for some reason when I add all these dependencies. It was a bit.
It's not a live demo without an error, so.
Yeah, if you see the error here is because I cannot find the socket that was the live reload for Angular. So I don't know why
it's okay because Matt's like super chill about it. He's like, yeah, that's fine. Don't worry.
He doesn't even care.
Yeah. I got this.
Not even worried about it.
Look, the red's gone.
Okay.
We never doubted you, Matt.
Yeah. So another thing that I forgot to do here is, of course, in my constructor, I need to fetch my information. And actually, every time I add something, I really want to update my list of things with the recent change. So it's not the most optimal way of doing, but I'm going to call fetch after post as well, just in case. So if you go back here, we can see what we have in our database.
Woo!
And let's say if I do ngHouston.
But we're having a lot of fun. That too, yeah, it is a good crowd. There's a lot of love in the chat tonight. And
now, if I reload my page, I actually, since I didn't rerun my backend, I have persistence with my journal. So this is already a full stack application. You have a backend, you can easily connect with a database or any other sort of things. And you also have a UI ready to use Angular material and all the components. So it's already a complete application. But now I really want to show some other cool stuff that we can do since we are in this environment of NX. So another cool thing that we can do, as we can see, if I go to my, let me open this guy real quick. So if we see this component here, we have a class entry here. And if you go to our API service, I have another class entry here. This is a maintenance nightmare because whenever you need to change these classes, you have to change in both places. It's really crazy. So NX provides us a really cool way of dealing with this. So to do that, I'm going to generate a lib. So again, NX helps us a lot. So I just need to do ng generate narwhal workspace lib, and I'm going to call it model. Cool. So what this does, if you look here in our files, inside libs, we create a new lib called model. And this lib is purely TypeScript. There is no Angular, there's no Nest. And it also creates an index.ts file that is going to export everything that we put inside our model. And another cool thing is if we come to our TS config, it creates an alias for ngHouston model. So this is really cool because we don't need to use relative paths between applications. We can just go to the namespace ngHouston model, and we can access everything that we have in our index.ts for the models library. This is extremely cool, especially when you start having your UI libraries with your components and all. Your imports are really easy to read, and you import everything from the same subgroup. So it's really interesting. And this is done automatically by NX. So in the documentation of NX, they say that you have to rerun your VS Code when you add this namespace, because otherwise TestLink doesn't find it and you're going to have errors. So we're going to just reload this guy real quick. I'm also going to reload this guy so they catch up. Sometimes just trying to avoid errors. Okay, cool. So we can refactor our UI a little bit. If we go to our component, now we can copy this guy, entry, remove it from here, and I'm going to transpose it to our model file. Cannot forget to export it here, otherwise I cannot access. And then back to here, I can actually import. I can import from Angular ngHouston model, and I have my entry. Oh, my entry here. Jesus Christ.
Does some weird things every now and again. Yeah, VS Code.
Yeah, that's okay. So yeah, it's amazing too, but sometimes. The same way I did this, I can do this on my backend, because now this ngHouston model is available for both of them. So I'm going to also do the same in my API service. So here in the API service, I'm going to get rid of this local class. And I'm going to import again from ngHouston. I'm going to import entry here. Good, good. And now I have a shared types library. The same way I did this with types, I can do this with business logic. I can do this with UI components if you have multiple front-end applications. So it's really interesting how you can leverage something that's already from the Angular CLI, which is this workspace with libs and apps, but extend this to also have your backend in the same place and everything use the same command line thing. There is one extra thing that I find super cool in Nest that I would like to share with you today, which is, in this case, if I go to my application, which is still working, I can add empty memos. And that's not really something that I want, right? This is really something that I want to prevent this. Of course, I'm going to disable in the UI my save button. But anyways, I don't want anyone to access my API and just add empty memos. I would like to prevent that in the backend as well. And usually doing this requires some maneuver, and with Nest is really, really cool how we do it. I'm just going to rerun my Nest application just to remove that empty memos that we have there. And then in the CLI, I'm going to do yarn add, and I'm going to add class transformer and class validator. So what this guys does, they allow me to verify, validate a class, and also cast a class to another class. This is especially useful when you sending a post body to your backend, and you actually want to cast this body to a entity that you're going to persist in your database. So with this guys, what we can do, we can go to our model, which is here in libs, and actually we can annotate this model with some constraints. So again, I'm going to import here from class validator. Are you there? Class validator, and I'm going to import is not empty. So what this does, when I go here and I say is not empty with this annotation here, I'm basically describing how I want to validate this class. What are the constraints? If you go to the class validator repo, you have a long list of all the validations. You can validate if it's an email, if it's a phone number. There's several validations, and you can even stack them if you want to not be empty, but also attend to other stuff. You can also tag them as optional if it's something that you don't really need to be sent on your body. But this alone doesn't do anything. We have to validate this manually, and we could do this using the class validator. But again, Nest provides us something really, really cool that we can do. First, I'm going to cast this guy to entry. And I'm going to import manually here just to prevent any funky stuff. ngHouston entry. Cool. And then to validate this, whenever I receive my request, what I'm going to do, I'm going to import from Nest. I'm going to import my validation pipe and use pipes. So pipes in Angular are usually using your template as pure functions to transform your variables to something that you're going to present on the screen. In Nest, they take a different form. So pipes actually, you put your pipe between your request and your controller. So you can actually use this. A validation pipe is a pre-built pipe that comes with Nest, but you can create a pipe for authorization, for instance, that's going to check which roles you have before you're accessing this, and can even deny your access. So in this case, we're going to use just this one that comes with Nest. So basically what I'm going to do is I want this guy to use pipes. Actually, I'm going to put in for the whole, I'm going to put just for the post. So use pipes.
Oh.
Or maybe not. Yeah.
Still proving you're doing everything live. So that's good, man.
Yeah. So I can use pipe. I can either use a version of the pipe, like just passing the class also works. I'd rather you do a neo, because then this is a good practice. If you have a pipe that is stateless, it's just going to allocate this for this request and then clean it up. You don't have to have a long running pipe. And just by doing this, if I come back to my UI and try to insert an empty log, oh wait, just doing this, guys. Let me put this guy here just in case. That's how I did. Okay, get running. Okay, our first problem. Let me check my backup here.
Did you refresh the front-end browser?
Oh, no, the problem is that I'm creating a new pipe here for this guy. Will not fly. Then I have body n3. I also saved this guy with my annotations. Yes, cool. Here I have no error.
Yeah, now it's gone. The empty one.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah,
understand
so-
now why you put it on the controller, because else it would return on the get. It would return the empty ones, which are already in memory.
Yeah.
I guess.
But it's still not working, my validation pipe, for some reason. It's actually not saving it, but well, I did this so many times.
You're muted, Bunny. Yeah, you're muted.
I was saying it can't all be so easy when you're live on YouTube, because I was watching Matt and it's like all these things like, oh, that went wrong. And Matt's like, oh, that's fine. I can fix it. Oh, that's fine. I can fix it. And I'm like, man, it's just too cool, right? If you have to have something go wrong. You have to have a moment of panic on YouTube. Like everybody does this.
It's not panic. It's now just a regular debugging session,
It's
right?
not even panic because he's just like, yeah, this is fine. This is easy. I can fix this. It's too easy.
Programming is 60% debugging, so.
Yeah.
So you were really cheering for me to fail, Pony?
No, I was not. I was cheering for you to succeed, but
I'm really not happy about it.
You're just making it look so easy, Matt. And that's the thing. Is it's just really this easy.
For some reason, now it worked.
Yeah.
So as you can see, I tried to say I saved just something here. So if I save something with data, it's going to work. If I
refreshing, yeah, there it is.
There.
Still,
but
something...
if I try empty, I get a network bad request, and I actually in my message I can see why it's failed. So it failed because title cannot be empty or body cannot be empty. If I try just with an empty title, my error is going to be just about the title. And if finally I add the title, I have it saved.
Nice.
So this is a really cool trick that you can do with Nest. We at Reactor we've been working with Nest for at least 6 to 8 months, and we implemented WebSockets, CQRS, all this really advanced stuff.
Awesome.
Mainly using Nest documentation. We didn't have to look somewhere else. So it's really cool how your code looks really clean and easy to maintain. And all these validations really help us. The same way that you do these validations to validate your class when you're receiving your backend, you can also add if you have a repository, you can add which column this variable matches on your database, and you can actually integrate your database straight with a class. So every time you fetch something, you know how to pre-compute something, or you can enrich your class with functions as well. So it's really cool how Nest integrates all these things. So basically, what I had for today was this. There was a bit of bumps in the roads, but in the end, I think was quite cool. And that it is. In more or less 30 minutes, now we have one repository with our shared library, with everything that we want to share between front-end and back-end, an Angular application and a Nest application. Yeah, that's what I had for today.
That's beautiful.
That was fantastic.
I mean, not that I would ever cheer for you to fail because you're my friend and I really like you, but I'm actually glad that it was kind of like not working a little bit at the end, because it was just too perfect to be believable, right? Because like, could you actually create this whole full stack functional thing just like that? But you actually did. It's beautiful. That was a
You
really good demo.
said there were a few bumps on the right. I wouldn't call it bumps. I would say happy little accidents.
Because the bumps are like Matt's like, oh yeah, that's fine. I can fix that. And Matt, I don't know. You should see the chat. You shouldn't see the chat, so it'll go straight to your head. But everybody in the chat is loving you, and this was I thought this was a very good demonstration, and it was a good presentation, and I really like it. And I'm sure Narwhal's going to love you too, because I don't know how great Narwhal is. Like, this makes Narwhal look really good. We just shown you how easy Narwhal makes your job.
You know, I'm even using my NG Vikings hoodie because this reminds me from when I presented with Bonnie NG Vikings, and we had to rehearse and all, and that really. So today I rehearsed like 5-6 times before today. So, and still we have to.
That's why you're so smooth on the air, and it's like,
it's thanks to you, Bonnie.
Yeah,
you were a really good coach when I need to present with you, and I learned some stuff.
You see why I like this guy?
Yeah, I understand.
Thank you so much. Well, thank you very much for coming on ngHouston and teaching us something cool. And obviously, you should come back sometime and teach us some more cool stuff because you were very popular. According to the chat, you were very popular on ngHouston. And I really, Bjorn and I haven't done a whole lot of Nest, so this was really good for us. We got to learn some cool stuff. And everybody got to learn some cool stuff. So this was great. I really appreciate you, Matt.
Coming back to the original goal we set out when you start before you started to convince me to start using NX with my Nest project. I think I'm gonna redo it with NX. It looks good.
It's really
mission complete.
It's very easy also to migrate piece by piece. So in our project we had multiple services, and we start initially migrate our node services to inside NX piece by piece, and then with time we refactor to Nest, and now we have everything really solid.
Awesome.
That's so great.
Cool.
Okay, I think that's it for this week. I think we do not actually have a show. Hold on, let me check. We do not have a show next week, and we have the holidays coming up, so I think we're going to be off for a few weeks. But we will be back, so keep an eye out on the Twitter, ngHouston _ng Houston, if you want to follow us on Twitter. And otherwise, I just want to thank you, Bjorn and Matt, again. I want to thank everybody in the chat. Matt, this was really a great demo. I really appreciate you coming on and teaching us something cool. And like Sam told me, I have to end every episode. Y'all come back now, you hear? Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.